All right, everybody. So I decided to do this intro, this intro class on Google Hangouts for a couple of reasons. The first being is we do have some people that that won't be in the area to take these classes. So we want to try to experiment with different ways to make it accessible for them. So this is going to be one. This doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to use this going forward, but it doesn't hurt to play around with it. The second reason is because these intro classes typically take about 15 to 20 minutes because all I'm really doing is going over the syllabus and talking about expectations and things like that. So I didn't think it was very efficient to have all of you guys come over here, just so you can read a piece of paper that I'm going to email to you anyway. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pull up that syllabus. We'll go through it, talk about a couple things, and then we'll shut this thing down, really. Okay, so hopefully you see this on your screen. This is prayer. The book was written by Brother Jeff a long time ago. One of the things that you'll notice, again, this is going to be one of the more complicated classes of year one. But the reason it is in year one is because it's foundational. For those of you who remember, worship, is comprised of prayer, sacrificial giving, and instruction. So, you want to have this foundational stuff early because it really sets the tone for your worship, really not just throughout DIT, but throughout the rest of your life. So again, this is one of my favorite classes, not only because it's foundational, but because it's just really pretty interesting. And it deals with a topic that we all think we know about, but we'll find out that we really don't know much about it. So the book is written in he broke it down into 9 units, and within each unit, it's broken down into 5 days. Now, the design is so that you can study one of those, sections every day. So you'll have 5 days in the week to study, and then 2 days you'll have off, obviously. Now, it's really important that you actually follow this design because, when I was in DIT, we had this mantra that said a day's portion in its day. And the idea behind it was that, whatever the Lord gives you for a day is the perfect amount that you need. So you don't do any more, you don't do any less. You do what He's given you. And the idea, He showed that idea in the desert when He gave them the manna. I mean, He rained it down, but He told them, get what you need. Because if you got too much, whatever excess you had was rotten. You couldn't even carry it over to the next day. And then if you didn't get enough, well, guess what? You went hungry for the day. So we see examples of that in Scripture. And we want to put it into practice here, is do what you're supposed to do on the day that you're supposed to do it. And don't do what a lot of people, including myself, did, is skip days. Because what tends to happen is if I miss one day, I say, oh, I'll just do it the next day. Well, if you miss one day, well, guess what? You're probably going to skip a second day. And now you have 5 days to do, within 1, 2, or 3 days. And I used to do it all in one day, which is terrible. I still passed, but when I get into the character parts, you'll see why I took DIT for 7 years. So do that, guys. Make sure you do. You develop the discipline to do a day's portion in its day. So let's get into some of these objectives. The first one is to utilize and correlate the knowledge from the previous classes into the subject matter. Now, when it says previous classes, I don't want to limit that to DIT, guys, because the Spirit's been working with all of us for years. Some of us longer than others, and He's been teaching everybody here. And you want to take everything that the Spirit teaches you and puts into your life and incorporate it into class. Because what the Spirit's going to do, he's going to take all that stuff, and then he's going to take stuff from this class and add it on top of that, and then it's going to slowly build this, this great tower, of years of him pouring forth into you. So with anything that the Lord gives you, you want to make sure that you're incorporating it on the next level. 2, you have to be able to defend your understanding of the basics in an oral and written setting. I'm not asking you to know every single detail of the book, guys. I'm asking that you know the basics, but not just that you know the basics, be able to communicate those basics in an oral and written setting. So we're going to have tests, we're going to have quizzes, and that's a given. But, my style is I'm also going to put you on the spot, not to embarrass you, but because I have to see what you know. And if you don't know anything, then then it's my responsibility to make sure that that's not the case. You have to get something out of this class. And what good is knowledge if you can't communicate it? You know what I mean? Like here in February 2016, you guys know we've been talking about the Torah. And if you know anything about the Torah, the Lord gave them the Torah so that they could give it to others. Well, it's the same thing with this. He's not teaching you prayer just so that you know how to pray, but because there's so many millions and billions of people out there that don't know how to pray or don't know what prayer is, don't know what communication and all the different concepts in prayer are going to cover. They don't know anything about those things. So the same way that he gave it to me and I'm giving it to you, that's what he wants you guys to be able to do. So, classroom and attitude requirements. Each student is expected to be faithful and committed to all aspects of the class. Now, DIT is not a WOC international thing. Guys, it's a Jesus thing. Jesus gave the command, and you should all know this by now, but to make disciples of all nations, right? So if I want to make disciples, then logic dictates that I have to first be discipled. But let's go back. If it's a Jesus thing, and I'm faithful and committed to Jesus, then I'm also faithful and committed to the things that Jesus told me to do. So that's why that's a fair expectation. 2, each student is expected to complete their respective home study assignments. This really isn't much different from the first. We put this here because I can't I can't police what you do at home. To a certain degree, I can look at what you do in class, but your homework and all those things and the research and all that stuff, that's you and your Lord. Again, go back to that faithfulness and that commitment. If I'm faithful and I'm committed, I'm going to do all that stuff without need, without me having to look over your shoulder, which I won't do anyway. All right, so number 3, each student is expected to do their own research, own reading and research. This is an important point, guys, because, we got spouses that are going to be taking these classes together. You've got friends. You've got people that know each other or have known each other for a long time. And excuse me. And at the end of the day, our walk is between us and our Lord, not between us and our friend, not between us and our spouse. So again, when it comes to your own work, do your own work. Don't, hey, what did you get for number 1 on the homework? No, that's not how this works, guys. Because we all come from different places, and we're all in different we're all on different places on the lifestyle of the believer. So, the Lord he's dealing with us on different places. So make sure you're doing your own stuff. Number 4, each student is expected to be cooperative and to put into practice what they've learned. Is cooperate with me, please. Cooperate with each other and cooperate with the Spirit. Class is meant for learning. So we don't have time, for passive aggressiveness and for disagreements. I mean, you're going to disagree. I shouldn't say that, but we don't have time for all the extra stuff. Let's work together. Let's learn together. Let's build each other up. let's deal with the disagreements, which will be there, in a proper, um, in a proper setting, which is not class. If you got issues, deal with it outside. Um, but this time is, sanctified for learning. I'll put into practice what they've learned. I mean, obviously, it's kind of like the communication thing is, it's no good for me to know stuff and not to live it. Okay, so class schedule. As I mentioned before, there's 9 units. I'm not going to go too deep into the schedule portion because that's self-explanatory. However, I will say that I was given 13 weeks to do this class. As you can see, I broke it down to 12 weeks. That might become 11 or that might become 13. We don't know. It might stay at 12. But I'm flexible, so if something happens, I will let you know. Okay. Promotion requirements. Requirement 1, the classroom. You can miss no more than 1 class or quiz. Be late be late no more than once unless excused. Guys, things happen. I understand that. Let me know if something happens. Call me and let me know. Hey, I can't make it, and this is the reason why. Um, and I'm usually pretty lenient about that. Now, if we're talking about missing like 4, 5, and 6 classes, even with excuses, that becomes a problem. And the reason it becomes a problem is because now you missed, anywhere between 25 and 50% of the class. And there's no way that we can make that up. You can read it on your own, but you're not going to get the classroom part. The classroom part is very important. But communicate with me. If things come up or whatever, we'll find a way to work through it. And even if if you can't make a lot of classes, be faithful in the classes that you can make. Because again, at the end of the day, rather, this isn't necessarily about the grade, even though the grade is important, but it's about your prayer, it's about your worship. Okay. 2, you must participate in all classroom discussion and question and answer sessions. I already told you before, I'm gonna put you guys on the spot. I'm gonna ask you questions because that's really the only way I can gauge what you know or what you don't know. And if I see weaknesses, I have to attack those weaknesses. If I see strengths, I know, okay, we don't need to work on that. So participation is very key. 70% average on quizzes, homework, midterms, and final. 70 is just, excuse me, 70 is just a number, and some people are like, hey, if I get 69.6, is that a 70? That's not reality, guys. If you're not 80 and above, most likely you're going to be 50 and below. That's just the nature of DIT. 70 just kind of gives me a number to look at. But in reality, you're either going to pass it or you're going to fail, or you're going to fail it. So don't stress too much about the number. Just do your best. Continue to study, and continue to be diligent. Number 4, you must demonstrate comprehension of the subject matter. I think this goes without saying. If you don't understand what we talked about, then I can't promote you to the next class. So again, we'll leave that alone. Character requirements. These are the last 2. I must demonstrate a clear change in attitude and character. This is almost more important than the knowledge. Because if I know the whole, book, but I don't have the requisite character to represent him in talking about it, then, yeah, maybe I know the book, but I don't know. I just want to say that. I mean, it's hard to explain. Well, okay. I took DIT for 7 years, and I knew almost everything. I passed every quiz, almost every test. It was my character that kept me back, because it's really hard to really quantify the importance of character. But character is like, character is what dictates my respect and the honor that I give to my Lord. I've never had an issue with the knowledge part. I can't remember a time when when that ever hurt me or hurt others. But what did hurt others was my character. So you have to allow the Spirit to do that sanctifying work in you, not just to teach you, but to change you. Okay. So again, that's a promotional requirement. And then lastly, you got to increase in godly sincerity and humility. This is the same thing almost as the last mate talked about. But you know, when we're dealing with topics in this book, such as submission and confession, there has to be that visible, at least to me, sincerity and humility. You know, because if I don't see that, um, then I can already tell you, and I've taught this class before, and I've been teaching for a long time. If I don't see that, then I know that the submission aspect of prayer isn't present. So with all that said, I'll shut this part down. You know, guys, I really, really like this class. You know, I love the material. Um, I love what the Spirit does through prayer. I love really what prayer is. You know, and I'm trying not to get too much into all these little things, but prayer is a beautiful class if you let it, if you let the Spirit do what He wants to do. You know, and one thing that you don't want to do is think that prayer, or that at the end of this class, that you've got prayer, because you don't. Prayer is a lifelong, um, it's a lifelong thing, and it's constantly evolving. It's not changing, at least not from His perspective, um, but it improves. You know, the first element of prayer, and I'm not going to teach it yet, but the first element of prayer is communion. Without communion, I can't do anything else in prayer. So as you guys know, my communion with the Lord should continue to get deeper as I grow in the Lord. So what does that tell you is, as my communion gets deeper in life, then my prayer life gets deeper in life. So when you finish this class, your prayer life should be completely different than it was when you started. But then next year around this time, it should be even more different than it is when you finish this class. And the year after that, it should be even more different. So, you know, if you take the time and you look back 7 years, 5 years, whatever down the line, your prayer should be constantly changing, constantly getting better. But you need this class as a foundation. It says to give you the tools that, you know, that this is going to give you the tools that you need later on, you know, when really prayer is all you have, if that makes sense. You know, when that communication between you and your Creator is all that you have going for you. So, with all that said, I really look forward to teaching this class. I hope you guys look forward to learning. And if you let the Spirit do what He wants to do, you're really going to love it. So, with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and email you this syllabus. I'm going to email this link out here in just a little bit. It's going to have my email, it's going to have my number, all that stuff, of course. So, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm pretty good about responding, you know, within a day or so if I can. If not, you know, I'll find the answer. But again, this one's going to be fun. So I look forward to getting started, guys. Have a good day.